So talking about perception of color temperature, and it's kind of a fun question for a lighting designer, because we have to wear so many cultural hats and understand it wherever we go. But if I had to sort of talk about Europe and the Western world, I would say that we create a cozy ambience with a warmer tones and possibly as well a little bit of contrast, a little bit of shadow, and depending on the type of project, I mean, certainly in hospitality projects and retail projects, we'll use layers of light along with color temperature, sometimes a color temperature contrast, to create atmosphere and emotion in a space. It's really interesting when we then take this outside, because I mean, the best example that I can give you is Rome, which isn't too. It's only about 2 hours from where I am now, to the west of me. Rome was always lit, and it's this wonderful mix of old and new and ancient. And you'll certainly, Greece and Athens is similar, but Rome was always lit in high pressure sodium light, which has this wonderful golden hue to it, and it works so well with the old. It just gives an atmosphere to the city. And again, I did the master plan for Canterbury, Canterbury Cathedral and the old city, and we decided to replicate gas lights. So although we used LED light, we went to the amber end of the spectrum at 2400 Kelvin, and we did this in the old city, and it made it very atmospheric. It felt ye olde, it felt right. But the problem with Rome, they decided to modernize their lighting and go to LEDs, and nobody sort of consulted the people of Rome, and they went to a cooler white on the basis that it's brighter, better color rendering it. But they almost killed the atmosphere of Rome. And you quite often see, if you're talking road lighting and street lighting, where the roads will be lit with low pressure sodium, but that's a very poor color rendering, very, very red light. But what they do is they'll take you with white metal halide light when you get to important junctions. So they do this contrast, this delineation of the space with light. So it's a very interesting subject. Certainly in Scandinavia, you'd almost certainly be at the warm end of the spectrum. And I love the way, I mean, I've seen, I did a master plan for a World Heritage Site, Hunan, in Yunnan province in China, and we had like great mists. So I went with the warm, almost like a beacon, almost like a candle, pulling people in through the mists. And that's how I sometimes see the light in Scandinavia. And they very much will put a light in the window, and a warm light, and it's almost like a candle or beacon, pulling people in from the inclement weather. It's very exciting and very interesting. And also as well, we have color creeping into the world now. So that's a whole other interesting topic.
So in terms of perception, how people feel about color temperature in Finland, in private homes, it's often very warm and inviting light. And when we talk about, for example, Christmas lighting, we have been doing surveys how people feel about Christmas lighting. Is it like cold and snowy, icy blue, or is it more warm and cozy? So it's always the warm. And I think that's what people really want to have in their homes. Sometimes I think few years ago, people were really into this daylight trend. And if people design their homes with really cold, like white and gray and silver kind of colors, they want to keep it fresh. But then eventually, I think they realized that daylight color temperatures, they are really cold, and that's not what they really want to have in their homes. But in urban environment, a few years ago, 4,000 kelvins was really popular in outdoor lighting. And some people, they find it very fresh. And especially when we have snow, when you have all the white around you, they say it's fresh, it's very effective and very powerful. But then again, we know the lower we go, the better. So now we are using mainly 3000 kelvins, and people are really happy with that. And they even want to have it more in lower temperatures at the moment, because we know about the environmental issues. So people like it also, and maybe also because they are used to old sodium lamps. So it's kind of the feeling that city centers have. It's the traditional historical orange light. So when you quickly transform into colder ones, it's not so nice anymore. I think that's the case. So people enjoy the warm lights more.
The next part I'd like to talk about is the perception of color temperature within these different cultures. What is basically the most preferred color temperature, specifically in public and private spaces? So I'll start with my home country, which is obviously Tanzania, hence the hair. The one thing that I have noted about private spaces, and this is including my parents, is that there is, again, that cultural perception, going back to it, that cooler light is better. But I find that this happens a lot with older generations. The younger generations who have the ability to have traveled and social media are starting to be educated through social media about this use and the benefits of having, warmer color temperatures. In terms of public spaces, I would say it's not just cool lighting, but naked tube lights, like your T5s. And specifically when you walk around and you want to go to the corner shop, we don't have many malls, but everything is very, very cool, and it's exposed lamps, basically. So Philips have this new bulb that they created specifically for Africa, which is like, it's shaped like a bulb, but it's got these tubes because it's CFL. And that's what you see all around Tanzania. With regards to the UAE, I think it's very give and take, right? So a lot of private spaces, like my personal space, is quite dark. It's got only very specific lighting for functions, just very low level lighting. But a lot of other private spaces, I've noticed, really lean towards a mixture of, warm color temperatures such as 3000 Kelvin with a bit of neutral color temperatures. Like, it doesn't matter if you have an open plan kitchen, you would expect that the person or the tenant would have a cooler temperature. That's just how it is perceived. With regards to public spaces, everything goes. I think it kind of depends, because in the UAE and the Middle East at large, we're such a very social community at nighttime. So each space has its own vibe, and vibe is very much based on color temperature. So if you're looking to go to a vibrant space, then you'd be welcome to see a lot of colored light. If you want to go to something that is funky, you'll see a lot of mood lighting, which is very warm. And then, of course, if you're going to just a public space such as a supermarket, expect that there is not going to be any difference in color temperature. Everything is quite cool, except for the new marts, right? The new marts try to have warmer light in the bakery areas. Australia is a very simple thing to answer. It actually is quite relative to Tanzania. If you go to older generations' homes, they do have a lot of, I should say, cooler temperatures. Obviously, younger people and younger private residential spaces have warm color temperatures. And then in terms of public spaces, that is where it's quite exciting, because there is this element always of what does that space represent. And if it's, again, like a really cool, funky space, or if it's just kind of like a very classically designed space, the color temperature is always warm and not too warm. But there's this beautiful balance that is quite unreal if you think about it.
Well, I will split that question into welcoming and inviting. We usually associate warm to welcoming, to this well-being. But if we take inviting another way, like taking your attention, attracting, probably then we don't necessarily need to link towards warmer temperatures. So I would say generally in both in north locations and in southern regions, warm is associated with welcoming and more towards cozy. But attraction, I would say that's where we are quite more flexible, and it depends on the context. What kind of light suits better to create that attraction? In addition to that, I can also say that both in my origin or in my place of origin in Mexico and here, I would say that I will never associate cooler temperatures to this welcoming and cozy feeling. If we take the question in that way, it will be always warm, but not too warm, and it will be more about the quality of light, color rendering, how good it is, and also how well it's placed. What we take about, how we define this warm and welcoming feeling. I have worked even in projects in the beach, right next to the beach, and we use warmer temperatures. We will not use this coolish light because we feel it will destroy the mood. So I will always go for that. But that said, and ironically, here in Iceland, well, you will expect that it will also be like warm, warm, warm. I can say that I have heard that intentions of doing something cozy, but with color, like using different colors to create this special mood, not necessarily higher color temperature.
So in India, normally, like you see in the video, this is called the diya. It's a small lamp which actually represents the body and the light source which comes out of the diya, or the oil lamp is the soul. So this sort of lamp invites you to cleanse your mind, to free your mind of all the negativity, darkness, ignorance, anger, greed, jealousy. So this lamp actually gives you that perception of welcoming, starting a new project. It could be it could be a wedding that's going to happen. So this lamp actually represents this positivity, this welcoming and inviting. This thing in our culture. This is very deep rooted in our culture. Then going to your question of perception. When generally the cool white is perceived as a good light, as a bright light in general in your homes, usually. But when you go to restaurants, you go to spas, you go to some fine dining areas, you go outside, so you see a lot of warm light that is used, of course. And then when you go to some large monuments, or you have a wedding or something like this, then people like to use a lot of color. So the color is perceived when it comes to celebrations and things like that.
About perception in Mexico, we perceive as inviting and welcoming, definitely warm temperatures. It's the most common color temperature you find in hotels and all these places you go on vacation, right? But it also, I think, depends a lot of each client, because I have come across people who ask for 4,000K for their entire house, but there's another that definitely asks for 2,700K. But yeah, I think in general, warm colors are used more in these private spaces. I personally like warm colors in my private spaces, or something more like 3,000K, more I don't know how to say that, neutral. Okay, yeah. And now in public spaces, right now, that every public spaces you can see in Mexico, it's illuminated with 4,000K. or above. So I think the government have this idea of the same idea we talked about earlier. Like the whiter the light is, the better it can see. It's very related with security for them. This white and cold temperature. But I also know that lately there has been an approachment between government and lighting designers and also architects to make all these public projects. And I think this is very good because it definitely would change or improve the perception we have about public spaces today. So I think well, I hope